The Galactic Council chamber floated in the vacuum of space like a jewel no one could afford to lose, a colossal ring of silver and sapphire orbiting the blue-green gas giant of Therion Prime. Inside, it smelled of ozone, bureaucracy, and fear. Holographic delegates flickered around the table, scaled, feathered, tentacled, gelatinous, each species more self-important than the next, each convinced they represented the pinnacle of civilized thought in the Milky Way. Admiral Zorg of the Klarn Dominion coiled his segmented tail tighter and tried not to look nervous. He was a soldier, a conqueror. He had raised 12 worlds and made 300 billion sentients surrender with a single speech. His armored carapace gleamed beneath the chamber lights, but right now, he felt like he was sweating through it. "This cannot be accurate," he growled, his voice like metal dragged over stone. "Your scans must be malfunctioning." The Council's AI, an 8-dimensional intelligence named Korvax, who spoke with the infinite patience of someone repeatedly asked to explain fire to cavemen, hovered above the table. "The data is verified. A single vessel, human in origin, appeared at Vector 7 Delta. Within 4 minutes, 17 of your Dominion's war cruisers were destroyed." A ripple of shock traveled the room. Destroyed was not a word often applied to Klarn war cruisers. Zorg slammed a clawed fist onto the table, making the holographic screens shiver. One ship, primitive apes from a backwater gravity, well managed to take down a Dominion fleet? Preposterous. Across the table, Ambassador Sleethor of the Seraphim Conclave, thin, insectal, with eyes like black pearls, clicked his mandibles in amusement. Perhaps the mighty Dominion has grown complacent? These humans have been ignored too long. We saw the warning signs: constant warfare among themselves, crude humor, excessive caffeine consumption. A volatile species. A chorus of murmurs followed. The Frex delegate mentioned something about Earth's cultural obsessions after reviewing intercepted transmissions, films filled with explosions, music composed entirely of rebellious guitar riffs, sports where armored giants slammed into each other over an oddly shaped ball. "It is as though," the Frexian ambassador muttered, "they have been preparing for war recreationally." Zorg hissed. "A single victory means nothing. One human ship cannot stand against the full strength of the Galactic Council." The chamber lights dimmed suddenly, a sign the AI had received new information. "Correction," Korvax intoned. "The human ship has exited hyperspace again. New location, Denibian sector. Fleet response en route." They all turned toward the vast windows overlooking the gas giant, as though they might glimpse this troublesome vessel with their own eyes. None did. The stars stared back, cold and indifferent. Somewhere far from the council chambers, the human ship Valkyrie emerged from hyperspace in a blur of light and audacity. To alien sensors, it looked cobbled together from parts stolen off scrapyards and war museums, angular, scarred, painted in deep navy blues and reckless crimson stripes. Along its hull someone had scrawled words in bright yellow letters, "N.O. Step." On its bridge, Captain Jake Maverick, Hudson leaned back in a command chair, boots propped on the console, nursing a coffee the size of a small asteroid. He had the easy grin of a man who enjoyed being underestimated. He wore a battered flight jacket adorned with ancient Earth patches, NASA, Top Gun, a grinning coyote holding dynamite. His hair perpetually resisted regulation. "Denibian sector," he muttered, eyeing the star map. "Home to, let's see, squid-face guys with superiority complexes, right?" The ship's AI Clippy 9000 materialized as a holographic paperclip with googly eyes. It spoke in the cheery tone of an office assistant gone rogue. "It looks like you're trying to cause an interstellar incident. Would you like help with that?" Jake sipped his coffee. "Not now, Clippy." Behind him, Chief Engineer Maria Vasquez slammed a panel shut with the confidence of someone who had just convinced a fusion reactor to behave using only duct tape, profanity, and possibly a wrench from 1962. "Hyperdrive's holding," she announced. "For now. Don't ask how. Or why it smells like peanut butter in there." Jake gave her a thumbs up. "As long as it jumps when we tell it to, I'm not picky." The Valkyrie cruised toward the waiting Denibian fleet, 24 sleek warships bristling with plasma cannons, energy lances, and the collective smugness of a species that considered itself invincible. "Unidentified human vessel," came the Denibian hail, voices like grinding glaciers. "You are trespassing in sovereign territory. Power down and prepare for boarding." Jake leaned toward the mic. "Hey, funny story. We were actually just looking for the nearest gas station. You guys got nachos?" Maria choked on a laugh. The Danubians did not. They opened fire. For 3 glorious minutes, space became a kaleidoscope of streaking plasma bolts, detonations blooming like electric flowers. The Valkyrie moved like it was dancing, flipping end over end, cutting through enemy formations with impossible precision. Every time its cannons roared, another Danubian cruiser blossomed into flame and silence. On the bridge, Clippy helpfully observed, "It looks like you're winning a hopeless battle against overwhelming odds. Would you like to schedule a victory speech?" "Later," Jake muttered, throttling forward. The last Danubian ship tried to ram them. Maria fired something she called the surprise package, a weapon Jake suspected was built partly out of an old Earth satellite and possibly a leaf blower. The enemy vessel disintegrated in a glare of light. Silence returned to the stars. Back in the council chamber, the news arrived with the speed of panic. 24 warships, Korvax reported calmly. Destroyed. Ambassador Sleethor's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Perhaps now we take the death monkeys seriously?" Zorg rose, eyes burning like dying suns. "I will not be humiliated by creatures who still burn fossil fuels. Mobilize every fleet. I want this human ship reduced to atoms." Across the void, aboard the Valkyrie, Captain Jake set his coffee down, watching his sensors light up with incoming enemies from every corner of the sector. More fleets. Bigger fleets. Entire armadas converging on one lonely human vessel. He cracked his neck, grinned like a man about to bluff with the worst poker hand in history, and said, "Maria, warm up the hyperdrive. Clippy, cue the soundtrack." The AI chirped. "Ride of the Valkyries or highway to the danger zone." "Surprise me," Jake said. And with that, the Valkyrie vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only wreckage, confusion, and the growing realization spreading through the Galactic Council that they might have just picked a fight with the wrong species. The Valkyrie coasted in the shadow of a nameless moon, stars wheeling silently beyond the viewport, as if even the cosmos were holding its breath. The ship looked like it had survived the apocalypse twice, welded back together by someone with more attitude than engineering degree, and then spray-painted with optimism. Inside, however, it thrummed with life, a hybrid of Earth ingenuity and stolen alien tech that worked only because no one told it shouldn't. Captain Jake Hudson leaned over the holographic map table, eyes scanning the growing swarm of enemy signatures flickering in crimson. The Galactic Council was sending everything now. Armadas, mercenary fleets, even someone called the Sacred Order of Eternal Smite, which sounded like a heavy metal band. The grin he wore suggested he was taking this all as a personal challenge. Beside him, Maria Vasquez stretched the kinks out of her shoulders, grease smudged on her cheek like war paint. She had the pragmatic air of someone who'd long since accepted that physics was more of a suggestion than a rule when humans got involved. Hyperdrives cooled off. "Next time we push it like that, it'll either jump us across the galaxy or scatter us across 3 different dimensions." Jake nodded absently, eyes still on the map. "As long as one of those dimensions has a bar, I'm fine with it." The ship's AI materialized above the console, cheerful as ever. Clippy, 9000 always appeared as a glowing paperclip with eyes, the galaxy's most irritating omniscient being. "It looks like you've angered every major military power within 6 sectors, it chirped. "Would you like help writing a heartfelt apology?" "Delete yourself," Maria muttered, swiping through weapons diagnostics. Before Jake could reply, the comm crackled alive. A holographic projection flickered into existence, a tall alien with translucent skin and 6 fingers clasped in what was probably meant to be a diplomatic gesture. The being's voice was musical, yet carried the unmistakable tone of someone convinced they were the smartest in the room. "Human vessel Valkyrie," the envoy intoned, "I am Vrylock, speaker for the Galactic Council. We request immediate parley before further hostilities escalate." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Parley? Like pirates?" Maria smirked. "Maybe they brought rum." The alien clearly didn't understand. "You have violated sovereign borders, destroyed council fleets, and disrupted galactic stability. Explain yourself." Jake folded his arms, considering the words with the same expression he might use to read the back of a cereal box. "In our defense," he said slowly, "they shot first. We were just sightseeing. Big galaxy. Lots of pretty stars. Your guys came in all pew-pew, and we had to respond." Vrylock tilted his head, translator implants working overtime. "Pew-pew." Maria helpfully translated. "It's human for open acts of aggression resulting in large explosions." The alien envoy blinked his secondary eyelids. Then you agree to stand down and submit to council authority. Jake gave him the kind of smile that usually preceded regrettable decisions. Not exactly. And somehow, in the tangled web of languages and customs, the phrase not exactly translated in Vrylok's dialect as I accept your challenge to personal combat for honor and dominance. The envoy stiffened. Very well. Our champion shall meet you in single combat aboard the council flagship. If you prevail, we will consider negotiations. If you lose, your vessel is forfeit. The hologram blinked out before Jake could clarify. Maria stared at him. Did you just accidentally agree to a duel? Jake rubbed his temples. Apparently. Clippy popped back into view, eyes sparkling. It looks like you're preparing for mortal combat. Would you like help choosing a weapon? Aboard the council flagship 2 hours later, the dueling arena glittered beneath harsh white lights. Alien officers and dignitaries packed the observation decks, murmuring in anticipation. The champion of the council, a towering reptilian warrior clad in ceremonial armor, flexed claws the length of machetes. Jake stepped into the arena, wearing his old flight jacket, and carrying what looked suspiciously like a modified pulse rifle. He gave the crowd a lazy wave, as though this were halftime at a football game rather than trial by combat. The council officiator raised the staff. Begin. The reptilian champion roared, leaping forward with terrifying speed. One shot. The pulse rifle hummed, the champion collapsed in a smoking heap, and the arena went dead silent. Jake lowered the weapon. What? He was coming right at me. Maria, watching from the Valkyrie via holofeed, pinched the bridge of her nose. Subtle as always, Captain. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates shouted about dishonor, others about excessive firepower. One fainted dramatically into a decorative fountain. But rules were rules. The humans had technically won. Vrylok, pale and visibly trembling, reappeared via hologram aboard the Valkyrie. The council will reconvene to discuss terms, he managed. Jake leaned back in the captain's chair. Take your time. We'll be here. Probably. Maria turned to him, arms crossed. You realize they're going to send everything they've got now, right? Fleets, assassins, probably some weird space curses. Jake grinned, feet up on the console. Good. Was getting bored. On the tactical display, red enemy signatures multiplied like angry hornets, converging on a single spark. The council wasn't just coming, they were bringing every ship with a gun and a grudge. Clippy chimed in helpfully. It looks like you've triggered a full-scale interstellar war. Would you like me to start a scrapbook? Maria groaned. Jake cracked his knuckles, eyes bright with the kind of reckless excitement that only humans seem to possess. Let 'em come, he said. Let's show the galaxy what one little ship from Earth can do. And somewhere beyond the stars, fleets began to move, armadas knitting a noose of steel and plasma around a single vessel whose crew didn't seem to understand the meaning of impossible. The Valkyrie hung at the edge of Sector 9 like a shark circling the edge of a swimming pool, one lone ship against the might of the galaxy. On the tactical display, crimson icons multiplied until the map looked diseased. The Galactic Council had gathered everything, battlecruisers, dreadnoughts, mercenary raiders, even ships so old their hulls probably remembered when gravity was invented. They were here to end this human problem once and for all. On the bridge, Captain Jake Hudson sipped his coffee with the calm of a man waiting for a bus rather than the end of civilization. The mug read World's Best Dad, though no one knew if he actually had kids or just liked the irony. Maria Vasquez paced behind him, boots ringing against the deck, hands coated in engine grease. She'd spent the last hour rerouting half the ship's power through something she called the Don't Ask, Just Pray circuit. They've got at least 3 dreadnoughts in that formation, she said grimly, pointing at the display. Those things have guns bigger than small moons. Jake grinned around his coffee. Then, it's a fair fight. The AI, Clippy 9000, materialized above the console. It looks like you're facing imminent annihilation, it chirped in its maddeningly cheerful voice. Would you like help composing a last will and testament? Maria swatted at the hologram like it was a persistent fly. The fleets began to close in, massive shapes blotting out the stars. Alien admirals barked orders over encrypted channels, formations shifting with military precision. This wasn't a skirmish anymore. It was an extermination. The Valkyrie didn't move until the first shot came, a beam of coherent plasma that could have split a continent. Jake waited until the last possible second, then punched the thrusters. The ship rolled, twisted, and accelerated in a way that made several laws of physics file formal complaints. Return fire lanced out from the Valkyrie's railguns, each shot slamming into enemy cruisers like the fist of an angry god. Entire formations crumpled under the impossible accuracy. Maria triggered one of her custom toys, a missile cobbled together from scavenged alien tech and Earth rocket fuel, and an enemy dreadnought vanished in a blossom of fire. "Remind me," Jake said conversationally as another cruiser exploded, "what do these guys call us?" "Death monkeys." Maria smirked. "Uplifted primates with boundary issues, I think." The Valkyrie dove straight through the heart of the armada, a streak of reckless defiance. Alien warships fired everything they had, but the human ship danced through the storm like it was choreographed, engines howling, shields flaring white-hot. Across the sector, alien commanders screamed into their comms. "Block them. Cut off their escape. By the stars, will someone hit them?" But nothing worked. The Valkyrie moved like it knew what they would do before they did it, weaving through collapsing formations, leaving wreckage spinning in its wake. On board, Maria slammed another power coupling into place, sparks showering across the deck. "Shields at 20%, she yelled over the alarms. Jake nodded, eyes locked on the tactical display. "Plenty." Then, in a maneuver no sane pilot would have attempted, he flipped the Valkyrie end over end, fired the aft thrusters full burn, and used the momentum to sling 3 enemy interceptors into each other, like cosmic billiard balls. Clippy reappeared, eyes wide. "It looks like you're violating several interstellar safety regulations," it said. "Would you like to file a report?" "Not now," Jake growled, pulling the ship into another impossible dive. The alien flagship entered the fray at last, a colossal vessel bristling with guns and arrogance. Its commander, a six-eyed veteran named Threxel, snarled from his command throne. "Target the human vessel with everything we have. No retreat. No survivors." Massive cannons swiveled toward the Valkyrie. Jake leaned back in his chair. "Maria, you ready?" She grinned, wiping sweat from her brow. "Oh, I was born ready. Also slightly underpaid." The flagship fired. The blast lit up half the sector, a torrent of energy that would have vaporized the city. But when the glare faded, the Valkyrie was gone. "Where?" Threxel began. A shadow fell across his bridge. The Valkyrie had jumped inside the flagship's minimum firing range, skimming its hull like a shark circling prey. Magnetic clamps latched onto the flagship's dorsal plating. On the bridge, alien officers shouted in panic as human boarding pods slammed into the corridors. Marines in patchwork armor poured out, weapons blazing. They moved with the cheerful efficiency of people who considered this less a battle and more an enthusiastic bar fight. Jake himself strolled onto the flagship's command deck, carrying a pulse rifle, and the kind of smile that made insurance companies nervous. "Afternoon," he said. "Lovely ship you've got here. Shame if something happened to it." Threxel bare his fangs. "This is sacred ground, human." Jake shot the control panel beside the throne, showering sparks across the deck. Not anymore. The firefight was brief, chaotic, and extremely one-sided. Human Marines secured the bridge before the alien officers had even finished drawing their sidearms. Maria's voice crackled over comms. "Engine room's ours. Want me to shut her down nice and gentle, or make it explode real pretty?" "Let's be neighborly," Jake said. "Gentle it is." By the time the last alien resistance collapsed, the Council's grand flagship, symbol of its unity and power, was flying under human control. Across the sector, alien fleets hesitated, leaderless, watching in disbelief as the Valkyrie transmitted one simple message on all channels. "Flagship secured. Suggest you reconsider hostilities." Silence followed. Then, slowly, impossibly, the alien ships began to retreat, blinking out of the sector one by one. The humans had not just won the battle. They had humiliated the galaxy. On the bridge of the captured flagship, Jake settled into the command throne with the casual ownership of someone claiming a free chair at a cafe. Maria stood beside him, arms folded, a faint smile playing at her lips. "Think they're getting the message?" she asked. Jake watched the enemy fleets scatter into the void. "Oh," he said softly, almost to himself, "I think the whole galaxy just tuned in." But in the darkness beyond Sector 9, bigger fleets were already gathering, powers older and angrier than the Council itself, drawn by the chaos like wolves to blood. And the Valkyrie, one tiny ship carrying one very human crew, had just painted the biggest target imaginable on its own back. The alien flagship drifted at the edge of the sector like a wounded beast, its shattered hull plates glowing with the heat of fresh battle scars. Inside, smoke curled through ruined corridors where crew members sat bound or slumped in exhaustion. The banners of the once proud Galactic Council drooped like defeated soldiers under the dim emergency lighting, their colors muted by the soot of failure. On the bridge, Captain Jake Hudson stood with his arms folded, gazing out through the forward viewport at the scattered remains of the Council's so-called invincible fleet. Even with half the sector in flames, he carried himself with the relaxed posture of someone watching a backyard barbecue instead of the aftermath of galactic-scale slaughter. Maria Vasquez, hunched over the alien control consoles, saw through the calm act, his clenched jaw, the tension in his shoulders. He was waiting for the next wave, because it always came. "You know they're regrouping," she said, elbow-deep in alien wiring, as sparks spit at her gloves. "Embarrassed politicians with big fleets and bigger egos? They never quit after one punch in the teeth." Jake didn't look away from the viewport. "Then we finish this before they get their second wind." Clippy, 9000 popped into holographic life above the navigation console, cheerfully oblivious to the bridge's wrecked state. "It seems you've triggered an interstellar incident," it said in its relentlessly chipper voice. "Would you like help drafting an apology letter? I recommend opening with oops." "Mute yourself," Maria growled, yanking another sparking cable from its socket, "or I will personally reprogram you into a toaster." Before the AI could respond, the holographic array flickered, and the faces of the Galactic Council delegates appeared. Their expressions carried the brittle edge of people watching centuries of dominance crumble in real time. Vrylock, the Council leader, no longer had the smug composure from their first encounter. His face was pale, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Human," he said, "return our vessel immediately. Stand down your warship. The Council will consider negotiations." Jake turned from the viewport at last, his grin sharp enough to cut steel. "You had your chance to negotiate before you sent 10,000 warships after one ship. Now you're out of fleets, out of options, and about 5 minutes from being out of time." Angry voices exploded among the delegates. Vrylock silenced them with a snap of his claws, right as Maria patched the flagship's long-range sensors into the Council feed. New signatures lit up the edges of the system. Massive fleets dropping from hyperspace like sharks scenting blood. Not Council reinforcements. Pirate monarchies, war clan tribes, exiled empires long thought extinct. Every rival the Council had spent centuries keeping in check now descended in gleaming, furious swarms. Maria leaned against the console, arms folded, watching the delegates pale one by one. "Looks like every grudge in the galaxy just RSVP'd." Jake nodded slowly. "They'll hit your core worlds first. But they won't stop there. This whole sector goes up in flames unless we stop them here." Vrylock blinked, stunned. "You expect us to fight beside you? After what you've done?" Jake met his eyes without flinching. "You want your precious order to survive the week? Then you fight. Right here. Right now. With us." It was insanity dressed as strategy, allying with the people he just humiliated, fighting shoulder to shoulder with sworn enemies for one battle only. But desperation makes faster friends than diplomacy ever could. An hour later, the Valkyrie, the battered flagship, and what remained of the Council's once mighty fleets formed a single battle line across the sector rim. Alien officers glared across bridges at human crewmen, hands hovering over weapons in case allies became enemies again. Maria moved through the flagship like a storm, jury-rigging weapons systems the original engineers would have fainted to see, while Jake returned to the Valkyrie's bridge, boots echoing across scorched metal. The first WarClan fleet arrived in a roar of warped gravity wells and snapping hyperspace ruptures. Their ships dwarfed even the Council dreadnoughts, mountains of alloy bristling with ancient, brutal weaponry. The lead vessel's commander broadcast across every channel, a creature of scars and molten eyes, voice like cracking stone. "This territory dies today," he declared. "Council cowards. Human vermin. All of you burn." Jake leaned lazily toward the calm pickup. "Yeah." Bold words from someone driving a ship that ugly. The warlord's eyes narrowed. "You die first." The black tide fell upon them. The battle hit like the end of worlds. Plasma lances ripped across the void. Missile swarms blotted out the stars. Council ships, used to neat formations and predictable rebellions, buckled under the ferocity of WarClan tactics. The Valkyrie danced through the chaos like a phantom, its weapons cutting precise holes in enemy lines before vanishing into drifting debris clouds. On the flagship, Maria barked orders in 3 languages, 2 of them alien, shoving terrified officers into action as she rerouted entire power grids with cables and profanity. "Fire everything that isn't bolted down," she snapped, slamming a control panel with her fist as another wave of raider craft screamed toward them. But for every enemy ship they shattered, 2 more tore out of hyperspace. The Council battle line wavered. A dreadnought split apart under concentrated fire, scattering escape pods like sparks into the darkness. "They're trying to break the center," Maria warned over comms, voice tight. "If they punch through, we're done." Jake's reply came steady, calm, like he was calling a poker hand instead of commanding a war. "Then we hold the center." The Valkyrie dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation, guns blazing, dragging half the WarClan fleet after it. It was suicide unless the timing was perfect, and Jake's timing was always perfect. Maria watched from a flagship, heart hammering, as the Valkyrie weaved through walls of plasma fire, leading the enemy right where the Council's remaining heavy cruisers waited. The trap closed with the violence of a collapsing star. Crossfire from human and alien guns alike turned the void white-hot, detonating enemy ships in chain reactions that tore holes in the darkness. Ake appeared on the holoscreen, sweat-streaked, uniform scorched, grinning like someone who just bet the galaxy and won. "Then it's time we talk terms." Maria didn't miss a beat. "Earth sovereignty. Open trade. No fleets anywhere near our system. Permanent recognition on the Council." Jake added deadpan and Pluto's moon. Maria sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "He's serious. Don't ask." The counselors exchanged glances of exhaustion and bitter defeat. "Done," Vrylock said finally. And just like that, the war ended, not with parades or victory speeches, but with the quiet realization that the galaxy had changed forever. Later, aboard the Valkyrie, Maria stood beside Jake at the viewport, watching stars drift past like cold fire. "You realize," she said softly, "we just made Earth the scariest place in the galaxy." Far across the stars, in the dark corners of forgotten empires, whispers spread like wildfire about the Death Worlders from Earth, about the single ship that humbled fleets and shattered nations, and about how the galaxy would never be the same now that humanity had finally stepped onto the stage.